really, really good game. The game had really great visuals. The sound design was absolutely excellent. So with everything in mind, first off, hello to everyone over on YouTube. Hope you guys are doing well. So yeah, Stray. Honestly, really, really good game. I definitely enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Every aspect of it, I feel like, was spot on. Pretty much, it felt exactly what the developers wanted for the game. They did a very good job with that. So I'm extremely pleased. I am sad that I didn't get around to playing this sooner. For those of you that don't know what Stray is, it is a third-person cat-based exploration game where players take the role of a stray cat who must navigate a post-apocalyptic world filled with abandoned buildings and crumbling streets. With the ability to climb walls and objects, and use a drone companion to solve puzzles, the player must uncover the mysteries of this deserted city while avoiding the dangers that lurk in every corner. And with a focus on exploration, stealth, and environmental puzzle solving, I will say that Stray offers a unique and immersive gaming experience that lets players explore a pretty sizable and abandoned world with a new and actually pretty interesting perspective. Actually seeing everything from a cat's perspective when you're walking around the ground, all that kind of stuff is actually very cool. And it's not seen too much in other things. So there you go. That's what the game is. The game was developed by Blue 12 Studio and published by, and I know I'm saying this wrong, Annapurna? If I'm not saying that correctly, please correct me down below, but I believe it's Annapurna Interactive. So this is actually the first game that by the French studio Blue 12 that they've ever made. So they're actually located in France. And then the publisher is actually located in the US, in California. Now, the publisher actually has several different games under their belt, about 20 something from what I counted, about 23 or 24 games that they've published. Some, but not including all of them, is actually What Remains of Edith Finch is one of them. Another one is Outer Wilds. Actually, I did not know that. And then thirdly is Journey. If you've never experienced that game on PC or mobile or anything else yet, I definitely recommend all those games because from what I hear, they are very good. So yeah, I was actually not expecting it to be the same publisher, but was definitely pleased with that. Stray is a finished game. It is 100% done. Besides a few hotfixes that they released shortly after the game came out, probably just from the looks of it, just polishing up a few things, the game felt very polished when I played it. It was very good, and I'm very happy with how it felt and everything. Just every aspect of it was very well polished. It was a finished game. So potential for the game in the future, this one particularly, no, but I will say it did end on a pretty good note to where a sequel is possible. So I will say that they ended it just right to where a sequel could potentially pop up here. The game had really great visuals. The lighting of the environment, the movements of all the characters and everything when it came to animations and such, and even the enemies, well, it all felt very smooth and pleasing. The lighting on just how everything worked and such, and just the overall design of everything. It felt lived in. It wasn't just a very, you know, like photorealistic, but very blank kind of world. Like they actually put in a lot of details into the world to where it felt very lived in. There was really great physics mechanics in play. And a couple quirky ones here and there too. When you kick a certain thing as a cat, you don't expect a chair or a bucket to do a backflip, but it happens nonetheless in games. So kind of adds a little more humor to it. But all in all, the graphics were simply great. So it was very, very smooth and pleasing. Not too much to say here. That's not going to be covered in a few other areas, but just the overall gameplay was very simple, yet stressful at a few points. Like it was a very calm game. But then when you got into some of the more intense moments, without trying to avoid spoilers here, when you get into some of the more tense moments in the game, it was pretty tense. Like there were some times there where it was a bit worrying and such. And the contrast where you went from one to the other was very well done. and just having the calming moments and stuff like that, the aesthetic of the game and whatnot was just very, very well done. I liked it very much. And just the overall gameplay, it felt like you were playing as a cat, and then it had all the fun little things you could do as a cat in a semi-open world aspect, which was very, very enjoyable. The sound design was absolutely excellent. Now, when it comes to sounds and stuff like that in games, especially a story-driven game like this, sound design is very important. It helps tell the story. You can have a really good thought out and well-told story, yes, but when you have sound design for everything in the world, the ambient sounds of everything happening, everything that's coming from the NPCs just walking around or interacting with things, the musical cues, and all of that in this game were spot on and absolutely phenomenal for what this game is. At moments, you felt very relaxed with the music playing in the background, with the sound of rain or artificial rain in the background, and all that kind of stuff in this world was just very, very well put together, and I enjoyed it. It made you feel like you were really in the world. Not a whole lot to say here. The controls were extremely simple, nothing over the top. You didn't need a lot of extra stuff. They didn't go overboard with the controls where you had a bunch of different things here and there. It felt very responsive. It felt very natural, I will say, to play on a controller. It felt very, very good. I feel like that's kind of the way to play it. I did play a little bit on mouse and keyboard, but I feel like the better way to play it is with a controller of some kind if you can. Just the smooth movements and camera movements and everything just felt right. And it's simplistic enough where all the controls and everything bound to the controller were perfect. I feel like you could still get away with it on mouse and keyboard, but I just feel like you'd be missing out on some movements and some other aspects of just being able to immerse yourself in the world with the controls. The story was extremely good. So they were able, and trying to avoid spoilers here again, they were able to tell a very good story with no voice lines and minimal dialogue between the NPCs and such. The way that it worked is that obviously you're playing a cat, so you don't really understand everything that a robot is beeping and booping about. So you had a robot companion that would translate everything. If you actually pay attention to the gameplay, your robot companion was the one who was actually saying things, and he was saying, oh, this person's saying it. He was acting as the interpreter essentially between the robots and you somehow, which made it all work. So with that aspect and everything, it's like, okay, everything was dialogue based. It wasn't being said or anything like that. The robots are just beeping and booping. So it felt very immersive in that aspect. But also just being able to convey the story through actions from the characters, as well as just the tone, was very well done. A lot of times, if you're trying to make a story, those things are very important to have a very good, essentially having the tone of what's being done, being understood. And I feel like that's a very important thing that needs to be done in storytelling, is having the right tone of what's going on. And this one hit that out of the ballpark. So they did very well with that. The lore and everything, there was a lot of mysteries that we were trying to figure out. It's like, okay, what kind of world is this? What's going on? What is this place? All these kind of things. Why are we here? What's going on? Kind of a thing. How do we get out? And all that kind of stuff. And at the end, it's all brought to a closure for the most part. There's still a few things that maybe if you didn't watch too closely, you might have missed. But you figure out why everything is as it is for the most part, or close to it. And then you keep going from there. So the lure was very good. This is kind of the one that out of everything was a little bit on the downer, and it does play in a little bit with the pricing, but it's still not bad. The replay value. The game's definitely not very long. It took me a total of 6.7 hours. From a lot of people that I know that also played the game, it took them about 6.1 or 5.5 depending. So roughly 6-hour game, and that's not if you're trying to explore every little aspect and just trying to focus primarily on the main bits and bobs of the game. So it's not overly long. Technically, you can compare that to something like the Halo games or most other like COD games or other games that have a single player mission-based campaign of some kind, where normally those games last somewhere around 8 to maybe 10, depending on how much is in the game. So it's not far off from that, for sure, when it comes to the overall number of times you can play it. You could definitely do some speed runs. With it not being overly long, I could definitely see a speed run be... The game's well put together for a speed run. Like, if you learn how to do everything and how to properly move and whatnot, I could see people well, I could see players obviously doing speedruns of this, but I will say for new experiences, such as like going back and playing it a second time, there's no new experiences. Once you go through it all once, and if you go, you can do everything in the game first playthrough, and once you experience it all, there's not a lot more to experience beyond that. There's no new dialogue options, no new story arcs or choices that you could make throughout the game. It's all very linear in that aspect. So once you've explored it all once, if you're very thorough on exploring certain sections, then you're not going to have a whole lot to go back and explore for a second time. At that point, all you got left is either just enjoying the story more or doing speed runs at that point. So not a lot on the replay value. It misses out on the replay experiences or new experiences, but when it comes to some of the other aspects, you can still definitely do that. It is a great game, and I will just simply say, as a player who loves story-driven games that you can really feel immersed into and really like actually feel attached to the characters in the story and all that kind of stuff in the aspect of the game, this game to me is worth the full price of $30. Obviously, not everyone's going to share that same opinion, and as we've said multiple times here on the channel, to each their own. Everyone puts their own price on what they want for entertainment. Some people, like every single one of us on the globe, is guilty of spending a lot more money than probably what other people would justify on some form of entertainment, either it be game, music, movie, what have you. So to each their own. In this one, I would just definitely say that the price is worth it for me. If you're not a story-driven player who enjoys those kind of games, obviously it's not going to be worth it for you, and that's understandable. But for me, I'd say it is. So pick it up if you ever want to. I've thought about it, and honestly, I wouldn't change anything in the game. I feel like it ended well. The story was good. Everything was designed. I really wouldn't change anything about the game. I don't have any gripes with it. I had no visual issues. I had no technical issues. The game ran perfectly smooth for me. So with everything in mind, this is probably the second time this has actually happened now on the channel. I'm giving this game a 10 out of 10 iron bars. There's nothing, as I said, nothing I would change. The game was done very well, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. The story was good, all the mechanics, every little detail about the game, I wouldn't change anything about it. So the game was built perfectly. I can definitely see them maybe making a sequel in the future, possibly. And if they did, I can definitely say that they have a good enough foundation here where they can elevate a sequel quite well if they do it right. So yeah, there's my review on the game. And there you guys go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it just as much as I did. And yeah, I honestly am very pleased with it.